to a special edition of the Darden Admissions Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Jennifer Hulvey. Jennifer is the Senior Director of Financial Aid here at the Darden School of Business, and I recently connected with her to talk more about her background, what she enjoys about financial aid, what she enjoys about working with Darden students, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. As always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Jennifer Hulvey. Jennifer, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Brett.
Well, it's great to have you here. How's everything going? How are you doing?
We are busy, getting ready for welcoming everybody to school in the fall. So it'll be a busy summer for us. We don't get the summer off.
Yeah, financial aid doesn't slow down in the summer. That's not, if anybody's wondering if y'all are on a beach somewhere, the answer is no.
The answer is no. We are hard at work in the office. We're delighted to hear from people because we're right here.
I think of that as a time when you are having a lot of individual appointments, talking with students about their particular situation. That must be a really interesting thing, right? Because you're meeting all these people who are getting ready to start their MBA program, or perhaps returning students, starting their second year, and trying to really work with them and help them.
That is absolutely right. And honestly, I've said this for years, but it's the truth. It's what I love most about this job. Nobody I know says, I love financial aid regulations or I love financial aid paperwork. And that would be true of me as well. Those are necessary things, but those are not what I love about my job. What I really love about my job is getting to know our students and just, getting to know their story, getting to know their situation, coming alongside, helping wherever we can. I think that's true of our whole team here in the Darden Financial Aid Office. We genuinely love creating the relationships with the students, getting to know them, and then walking alongside them as they go through their Darden journey. And then this past weekend, got to celebrate some of them graduating. So it was just, exciting. It's exciting when you get to do that. It's still my favorite. I've been in financial aid. I'm at the start of my 35th year in financial aid, and this is still my favorite part of the job.
That's awesome. Well, we got a little bit of your background there, 35 years in financial aid. That is amazing. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and your story.
Yeah, so I'm a native Virginian. My family is from Botetourt County. And I grew up literally in a little mountain hollow in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Botetourt County on a multi-generational small family farm. And so when I graduated from Virginia Tech, it was the first time my grandmother had ever seen one of her grandchildren graduate from college. So it was a big deal. I started out in ag finance, and I did that for a couple of years and decided I wasn't doing anything that I really wanted to be doing. I was not excited about ag finance. And so when I got ready to make the switch, I thought, what would I like to do? And I knew when I went to college, I had a hard time. My family obviously didn't have a background with higher ed. I struggled my first 2 years in school trying to just figure out the system. And I thought, wow, there's other people out there like me that I could help understand the system. And so finance, financial aid, I thought they couldn't be that different. I talked myself into a financial aid job and then realized, oh my gosh, what have I done? So I was super blessed to have some really great mentors who brought me along, taught me the ropes. I just really fell in love with the work again, because I did get to work with students. I did feel like I got to work with other students who, like me, didn't necessarily know what was going on. And even the ones that did had questions. And so that's been a really rewarding part of my job. In the midpoint of my career, I spent a few years consulting in higher ed systems. So I was a higher ed systems consultant. That's been a real help in my work, because the more I understand about how the system works, the better I can make it work for our students. And so that has that's also something that I've really enjoyed. doing. And so I continue today to focus a lot on how do we make our systems work more efficiently for our students and enjoy that part of the work. So I came to Darden from the UVA Law School. I've been at UVA for 18 years, and I spent the last 15 at the law school. And so I was very excited to come to Darden and get to know the folks up here on the Hill. We're for folks who haven't been to Charlottesville. The law school is literally down the hill from Darden. We have the Darden Hotel, which is called the Forum, in between the two schools, and we can walk right through a beautiful garden to walk between Darden and Law. So it was fun to come up here and get to start meeting all new folks.
Well, that's great. I did not realize you were from Botetourt County. For folks who are listening to this podcast, the way you spell that is Botettout. Is that right? I have
That
that
is correct.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. I spent some time in the Shenandoah Valley in my life, and it's beautiful country down that way. It's very, very nice. So what attracted you to the role at Darden, Jennifer? Obviously, you've been at UVA for a while. You've been working with law students for a while. What attracted you to Darden?
It's a great question. I was very excited. My predecessor had retired. My predecessor here at Darden had retired, and I was asked if I would just help out advising the staff after her departure. And when I got up here and I met the team and learned about what they were doing and how Darden did business differently than the law school, I got really excited about it. And I got really excited about the opportunity to come up and work with this team and also recognize that I would be able to engage with a new population of students with a new set of systems that needed. I thought I knew some ways to make them more efficient. I knew some ways to make them better. And so I got really excited about that. I was ready for a change. And so when Darden talked to me about potentially applying for the job, I threw my hat in the ring. So I was very excited to come and have this opportunity and maintain also, close friendships with the law school. One of the things that is so important in the financial aid community, as it is in many communities, is having that networking to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, I have a student with this situation. How would you advise them? What do you think we should do? And just have people you can call on. So we've been really blessed at UVA to have a tight-knit community overall, but particularly in the financial aid world.
Are business school students, MBA students, different from law students? There's similarities, differences?
They are very different. So one of the things that I say with love in my heart for both populations is law students really like words. They really like words, and they're not always as excited about numbers. Now, that's a broad generalization, but the level of counseling at the law school around numbers was a little different than it is here at Darden. And so Darden students, I have found here at Darden, a lot of our students already have a business background. So they're very knowledgeable. So they come in with different kinds of questions than the questions that I would get at the law school. But here's the truth. Financial aid is its own deal. People who aren't going to school don't need to know what a Grad Plus loan is. People who aren't going to school don't need to worry about the criteria for a merit scholarship. And so to folks who do come in with questions, I would say, please come in and bring the questions, right? Because this is a very specialized field. You only need to know it for 2 years or 3 years at the most. And then you're on to the rest of your life, and you probably don't ever need to know it again unless you're helping your children go back through the financial aid process later. So it's our job to know all those things. We're here to answer those questions, and so we love when students come in and ask us those questions. So the Darden students ask different questions than the law students do, but I've really enjoyed getting to know both populations of students and understanding their differences.
You're so right about people not really knowing that much about the financial aid process. We have this conversation all the time with prospective students who are just kind of curious about how people pay for school. And obviously, many of our students are borrowing. There's a lot of students self-funding across all of our programs, and educational loans are part of that equation. But people don't really know how that process works, how it gets started, what your options are. And I imagine you and your team are really helping people fill in that picture and answering a lot of important questions.
Absolutely. And again, it's just something that I love to do. I didn't know any of those things when I started at college either, and didn't even know the questions to ask. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, and so coming in and being able to just say, "Look, I don't even know how this starts. Can you help me?" We actually love getting that question. We love being able to sit down with somebody and walk them through kind of all of the options. And in the business world, there are different options than there are in other parts of higher education. We certainly see some business students who have employer sponsorships, for example, or who are in a position to self-fund because they've been in the business world working for a while. And those things are different than you might see in a student who was coming straight out of undergrad. And so it's been really interesting to get to talk through those things with the business students and also kind of help be a partner, be an educator about what all of the different kind of suite of options are. Yeah.
As you're working with students and your team is supporting them in the sort of run up to school, are there things that you think people should be thinking about, now? Obviously, we've got a mix of people who listen to this podcast. We got some people who are just purely prospective students and kind of still doing their research, but we also have people who are listening who are planning to get started at Darden this August. Anything that people should be thinking about before starting an MBA program from the financial aid perspective?
Sure. Well, a couple of things that I would tell you, and this is just like real practical advice. One is if you are a student who's starting in the fall, if you're starting in August, please read your UVA email. And that I know that sounds real basic, but please read your UVA email. We don't spam you. We send you things that you really need to know. If we have sent you an email, I promise there's something in it you really ought to see. And so just real practically reading your email. Another really practical thing that I would advise folks, if you're getting ready to start school, coming in with as little personal debt, consumer debt as possible is really helpful. While you're in school, you are going to be, even if you're getting financial aid, even if you're getting an employer sponsorship, you're going to have expenses that are related to your education, and not having to make a big car payment or make a big credit card bill payment. Again, that's real just kind of practical advice, but we find that it's much easier for students to sort of manage the educational expenses that come up when they are not deeply obligated in other areas. If you are deeply obligated in other areas, or even if you're not, and you just are like, gosh, I need to think through how my budget changes while I'm in school versus how my budget worked when I'm not in school. I'm an accredited financial counselor. We have other folks on staff that are very experienced in that area. We would love to sit down and talk with you about how your budget might change while you're in school and what sort of things you might anticipate over the course of a year. And it is a year, right? You're not just saying, oh, I got to pay this tuition bill that's going to come up in August. You're thinking about expenses for an entire school year. And you'll have some periodic expenses like tuition or maybe you're going to take one of our global experiences, which are just fabulous opportunities. I haven't gotten to go on one, but I've trolled the website looking at those. It's just amazing where our students get to go and the wonderful things they get to do. So sitting down and making a financial plan for that is something that if you need help or support doing that, we would be glad to do. But those would be things that I would advise thinking about coming in for fall.
Yeah, the point about the email is very important. We stress this with incoming students. The challenge for a Darden student is that they actually have a couple of emails that they need to keep their eye on, maybe even three, depending on how you think about it. So as you are matriculating at the Darden school, you get a Darden email address. You will also have a UVA email because you were also matriculating at UVA. And you also have your personal email that was associated with your application that you will also be receiving correspondence to. So all these things you have to keep up with. The UVA email becomes important because that is where the university sends messages related to billing, for example, or military benefits. And we really recommend that students set up forwarding from that UVA email to their Darden email address just to sort of narrow the field a little bit. You just only have to keep your eye on a couple of email addresses if you set up that forwarding. But yes, very important. People sometimes forget about that UVA email and they end up missing out on some important communications from the university.
That is absolutely true. And you make a great point about military benefits, for example. Darden has a lot of students who are active duty or veterans or otherwise have a military affiliation. And we have a wonderful military benefits team that we work with. But they're communicating to your at virginia.edu address, which is different than your at darden.virginia.edu address. And so Brett and Heather Williamson, who works in my financial aid office, and Callie Thompson, who also works with our part-time and executive students, did a wonderful, not boring webinar, which I think is out on the website. Is that right, Brett? It's posted out there.
It's for admitted students. Yes, you can find it on the admitted student portal is where it is for executive MBA and part-time MBA students.
It's a great guide to how to handle all of those different emails and systems. And we're also here to answer those questions, but yes, it's a great point.
Yeah, lots of systems. And so, yeah, it's just a lot to keep track of. We know this is why we host this webinar to try to bring some clarity or to make it a little bit easier for people to know what they should be looking for. I was really intrigued, Jennifer, by your comment about budgets and sort of developing a budget as a student. What does that look like? Like, what should students, anticipate from a budgetary standpoint, or how do you do that work?
Yeah. So, it's going to be different depending on whether you're a full-time student or whether you are someone who is still working and have an income. If you've decided that you're not working while you're in school, then you may be dependent on your financial aid disbursements to help pay rent, for example. Not just about tuition, but you got to have a place to live. You got to have something to eat. And so we would encourage students in that situation, particularly if that's a new situation for you, right? If you've been used to getting a paycheck every month or a couple times a month, and now all of a sudden you're going to be in a full-time school situation where you're not getting a paycheck, we'd love to have a conversation with you about that, because one of the things to realize is you're going to get a great big refund potentially if you're taking out financial aid for school. But that refund is then going to last you for a specific period of time until you get your next financial aid living expense refund. And so figuring out, what does that look like? How long does that have to last me? How do I need to allocate that across bills that I may have, across rent, across food, across any educational expenses? What was that money allocated for? Sometimes we're going to allocate money for specific things, like maybe one of the global residency trips. And so making sure that you just have a good handle on that. If you're someone who is working full-time and continuing to get a paycheck, that's awesome. It helps. Paycheck's always nice. But then you're figuring out, what extra expenses do I have paying tuition, maybe on top of what was already the rent and the food and the other living expenses that you might have. If you're someone with a family, and many of our students are married or have children, how does this impact the family situation? And so sitting down, talking through that, talking through your monthly income, your monthly expenses, and how school changes that is something that our staff has a lot of experience doing, and something that we're really happy to bring some tools to the table and sit down with you.
You mentioned that you're a certified financial counselor. How long have you been a financial counselor, and what sort of prompted you to take the step of getting that certification?
Yeah, I'm an accredited financial counselor.
Yeah.
It's a national accreditation. And it was really because I was doing this deep counseling work with our students. I got certified, my certificate's behind me, in 2020. I got this during the midst of COVID. One of the things that I had realized as I was at the law school at the time was that students weren't just asking me about financial aid. They were getting ready to buy a house when they got out of school and they wanted to talk to me about their mortgage. Or they wanted to know as they went to work for their employer how to set up their 401k and what kind of contribution level they should be making and how to balance their investments against their need to repay their student loans and what were all of their options for repaying their student loans and how did that then impact their ability to get married or start a family. And I did not feel equipped to have those conversations. So there is a national organization that trains financial counselors in these non-finance profession roles. So uh, uh, so I had become familiar with that from other professionals in the financial aid industry who had that certification and undertook getting my certification. It was so helpful to get a stronger skill set to be able to point students in the right direction. Also know where the boundaries were to say, hey, this is the place where you really need to talk to a certified financial planner, for example. And so I felt much better equipped after going through that. And we have a number of folks here at UVA who have that certification. So not only here at Darden, but at the law school and on our main campus who are accredited financial counselors and are able to offer some more specialized counseling that sort of goes beyond the financial aid world.
That's really interesting to hear the range of questions that you get. I think when you're talking to people about money and finances, obviously it's a very personal thing, but also there's a lot of questions people have, and some of them may stretch beyond just the immediate considerations of financial aid. It sounds like you end up talking with people about a lot of different things.
We really do, and one of the things that we want to be able to help with, I dealt with this a lot at the law school, and I haven't been at Darden for a full cycle yet, so I haven't dealt with it as much at Darden, but I expect that we will. It's just talking with students as they, for example, consider different job offers, right? Which job offer is the best one for me? And that might have, student loan considerations, it might have family considerations, it might have budgetary and financial considerations. And lots of times it just helps to have someone that you feel like you can have a good, trusted relationship with in a confidential setting to just sit down and talk it out. And so we want to be able to be a resource like that for our students. And I wanted to be a well-equipped resource for our students.
Well, Jennifer, what are you looking forward to in the months ahead? Obviously, we're recording this here in May. We've got a little ways to go to the start of school, but what are you looking forward to?
Oh, wow. I'm so looking forward to the start of school. I haven't been through a Darden launch yet, and I've heard lots of exciting stories about Darden launch. So I'm really excited to do that. I'm excited to meet our new class. It'll be the first class I've gotten to see sort of from start to finish. And so I'm excited to meet everybody. We're meeting some people on the student appointments that we have. We offer appointments on Teams or Zoom, as well as by phone and in person at our Charlottesville campus. And I'm going to be coming up to the Roslyn campus. I'll be at the Roslyn campus on a visit in June, and so also able to meet with students at Roslyn sometimes as well. And so as I've gotten to meet them online, I'm really super excited about actually getting to see them in person in August and take them to lunch or coffee. Darden famously has First Coffee where we meet one another and have community time, which is wonderful. I love the Darden community. I know that you guys are doing something similar now in Roslyn. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say when the students are here, we try to make time to sort of get them together and give them an opportunity to sort of connect. Um, one of the things I think about, Jennifer, when I think about your team is just how many individual appointments y'all have. This is not, and I think of this as very reflective of sort of the Darden culture just generally, right? This is not a place where you're going to be asked to sort of take a number and like be directed to some sort of like offsite help desk or something like this is, you're going to talk to the team directly. And I know that's time intensive for your team. But I just, I always marvel at the number of individual appointments y'all have and obviously conversations y'all have with students, obviously really in the details, everybody's situation's different. But I think of that as like one of the really nice things about what your team does is how much time you take for students.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It is also one of the things we really, really love about our job, as I've said earlier in this conversation. But also, we understand that sometimes students need to come back for more than one conversation, right? And we also want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to really talk about whatever it is that they need to talk about. And so we have an online appointment schedule on our website, on the Darden website. And we really encourage students to use that, that if they have questions, we love being able to sit down, look at each other. If I'm doing this on a screen, I can share my screen with you. I can show you how to walk through the system. You can share your screen with me, show me what sort of things you're seeing or experiencing that you have questions about. And I think that that's been a really productive way for us to feel like we meaningfully help students. And I hope students feel that way as well. So yes, please, if you're listening to this and you have questions about financial aid or questions about your finances while you're at Darden, you can go online to the Darden website, schedule an appointment with the financial aid office, and one of our team would be delighted to talk with you.
So for students who are just trying to learn about the financial aid process generally, let's say this is all very new to them, they're sort of trying to orient to what this looks like. Obviously, you have federal loans, which U.S. citizens and I think permanent residents are eligible for, and then you also have private loans, which students can also pursue. International students oftentimes they're in the private loan category if they're planning to borrow for school. Where can people go to learn more about the financial aid process or just financial aid generally?
Sure. So we certainly have resources on our website, darden.virginia.edu. And if you go and you go to our website and you look by program, there are differences by program, and certainly differences based on sort of what category you might fall in terms of I'm a military veteran, or I'm an international student, or I'm going to be a part-time student. How does my situation differ maybe from a full-time student? So those resources are on our website. Another place that I would absolutely encourage folks to go is studentaid.gov. That's the official federal student aid website. It is a website with really great resources and lots of information there. Those are two really good places to go and look for information about financial aid. Some other reputable sites would be things like NerdWallet. NerdWallet actually has some really good financial aid information out there. That's a place I enjoy. There's a site called AccessLex, AccessLex, accesslex.org. That is a website that a lot of their information is pointed towards law students, which is how I got to know it at the law school. But they have a really deep dive on how student loans work and how financial aid works for graduate students. And they have some great calculators out on their site, which I really like as well. So ignore the law part, but you can go and get some great information out there. The last site I would recommend, and it's one I've been recommending for years, is finaid.org, and that's FINAID.org. Finaid.org was created by a grad student who was having trouble figuring out how to repay his student loans. And he started just posting information for his buddies. He was really smart. So as he figured things out, he started posting them so his friends could benefit from what he had learned. And that turned into a fabulous nationwide tool. And now 20 plus years later, 25 plus years later, it's a really wonderful, reputable, ecumenical source, if you will, for financial aid information. So those are places I would encourage.
Well, thank you for sharing all those resources, Jennifer. Some of those I've heard of, and then a couple of them were new to me. So thank you for that. Last question for you: any additional advice for folks listening to this podcast, thinking about their own MBA journeys? Anything that you would encourage them to think about?
I guess one of the things I would say, and I think about myself going to school uh, the folks coming here, it's a major life change for a lot of folks. You're Even if you're continuing to work full time, you're taking on a huge additional commitment. Um, and that's anxiety inducing across multiple fronts, but certainly across the financial front. I would just say there are lovely people here at Darden who just want to support your journey. They want to help you just really be able to be as successful as you can possibly be in that journey, and also have it be a time where you feel supported and free to grow and ask questions, and also people who understand that that might mean that you're making some sacrifices, that your family's making some sacrifices, and as you go through that, and that we're really here to walk with you through that, to support you through that. I think, Brett, your team does just such a phenomenal job supporting students in Roslyn. And I see here at the Charlottesville campus just how kind and thoughtful and compassionate the staff is as they work with students. We get to meet just some super incredible people in this job. Our students have done amazing things. They do amazing things while they're here, and they're going to go out and do more amazing things. And it's a privilege to get to invest a little bit in that journey. So I would just encourage students who are feeling some anxiety around that to know that there are great people here who want to come alongside you as you do this.
Well, thank you for your kind words, Jennifer. It's our pleasure to work with prospective students. People ask us all the time why we're here at Darden, and a lot of that has to do with the students we get to work with, both prospective and current, and see them along that journey to help them make an important decision in their life to figure out, is Darden the right place for them? If so, what information do you need to feel confident in that? And then once you get here, we admissions folks, we may not be along for every step of that current student experience, but we're still here. We see folks for the weekend residencies or evening classes for our part-time MBA students, and what a thrill it was to be at graduation this past weekend, and to see another executive MBA class graduate, and our first class of part-time MBA students graduate. We can remember them when they were just applying and just kind of thinking about, is this going to be an option for me? So that is so much fun. Never gets old. So thank you so much for your time today, Jennifer. It's great to have you on the podcast, and thanks for sharing your expertise with our listeners.
Thank you for inviting me. I was delighted you asked, and I just look forward to meeting our new class of students in the fall.
And that was my conversation with Jennifer Hulvey, Senior Director of Financial Aid here at the Darden School of Business. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden's, DARDEN, @virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.